Now, 2 people were killed and 8 people have been injured in Israeli attacks on the southern Lebanon. The strikes were ordered by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in retaliation for what it says were rockets fired by Hezbollah. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has instructed the military to seize more ground in Gaza and threatened to annex a portion of the territory to pressure Hamas to release the remaining 59 Israeli hostages. Well, let's welcome to the show Noga Tarnopolsky, Israeli-Palestinian journalist based in Jerusalem. I remember speaking to you a few weeks back and we were talking about when that phase 2 of the negotiations was going to start. Can we just safely say that that is just not going to happen anytime soon?
That phase 2 is in the past, that Israel fulfilled its obligations, as did Hamas in the end, with some hiccups in phase 1, and that then Israel was the side that walked away from phase 2, and that has had many implications.
Noga, why did they walk away from phase 2?
They say they walked away because of numerous Hamas infractions. And they also say that they wanted a change. In other words, Israel proposed a new kind of deal that would replace phase 2, in which it could continue getting its hostages out, but it would never have to declare an end to the war, which was included in phase 2, redeployment to a perimeter and an end to the war. Netanyahu is going on many levels in the opposite direction. He not only has renewed the war, but he has managed to reintegrate into his cabinet the very extremist ministers who quit as a result of the announcement of the ceasefire back in January. Ministers who so explicitly wanted a continuation of the war that they walked out. Netanyahu is in a very particular moment right now. On the one hand, he has to pass a budget by March 31st or he loses power. And bringing these characters back into his cabinet basically ensures he'll be able to pass a budget no matter how unbudgetary it is, no matter how populist it is. On the other hand, continuing the war, in addition to bringing these ministers back, keeps him in power as he is continuing to lose support among Israelis, and as this weekend, while we speak, he is attempting to put in place the final steps of what I think we have to call a coup d'etat. So Israelis are facing external enemies. In Jerusalem, we had 3 air raid sirens in the last 24 hours, but Israel faces an even more dangerous internal enemy. I'm now quoting 3 former heads of the Mossad who've spoken out in the last 2 days, who describe Netanyahu as an existential threat to Israel as he attempts to illegally sack the 2 last gatekeepers standing, the Attorney General and the head of the Shin Bet, who are the 2 civil servants who have the right to declare him unfit to serve.
I mean, I'm just picking up my jaw from the floor, from the desk.
Me too.
Noga, what are going to be the repercussions of those Mossad, former Mossad personalities you've been talking about? What is going to be the repercussion for Benjamin Netanyahu? At one point, does the tipping point come into effect and his grip on power starts to be questioned?
We're at that point, Alexis, without question. Let me outline for you what happened in the last 24 hours, or now, let's say 36 hours. Netanyahu has been warned by the judicial authorities of this country for several weeks that he does not have the legal authority to fire the head of the Shin Bet. Neither does his cabinet. There's a procedure to do that, procedure that's never been used in the history of the state, but it exists. Netanyahu chose to ignore all that legal advice, move ahead with a cabinet vote. His ministers unanimously voted to fire the head of the Shin Bet, who responded with a letter that can only be called a complete indictment of Netanyahu as prime minister and of his failures, despite warnings from the Shin Bet to prevent October 7th. The Supreme Court, several hours later, froze any impact from that cabinet vote, which was an illegal vote. And the Attorney General sent the government, again, a devastating letter saying that the government does not have the authority not only to replace the head of the Shin Bet, but even to review candidates to replace him, that all procedures are now frozen. The government, via its ministers, announced that it would not adhere to either the Supreme Court ruling or to the Attorney General. Instead, the government has scheduled a cabinet meeting for tomorrow morning, Sunday, to fire the Attorney General. This, too, is illegal. One more sentence. As a result of these moves, the entire nation, I would say, has basically declared that they won't stand for it. Not only the thousands of protesters, but the heads of commerce, the heads of industry, more than 60 mayors, basically all of institutional Israel, the heads of unions, of the academy, they have all come out in the last 24 hours and said that if the government does not adhere to Supreme Court rulings, the country will come to a stop. And that's where we are as you and I are speaking right now, Alexis.
Well, Noga, thank you for bringing us up to speed. My goodness, there's a lot to take in there.